Okay, so for step 2 of your monotype project planning, I want you to consider more of the objectives and plan out each individual print as best you can with what processes and imagery you're going to use. Now, because of the nature of how I've designed the project, being that you need to accumulate 10 points across 3 to 5 prints, I would like you to make sure that you're thinking about the point value and also what processes might layer over top of another. So it's important to remember that in this project you're probably going to need to be flexible, that some things might not work out the way that you expect them to, and you might have to be resilient and reflect on that and go forward with a more informed plan. And so while I want you to look at your ideas on your mind map, and I want you to think about what processes you enjoy and how you might layer them. And I want you to plan for 5 prints that use minimally will accumulate 10 points. So you can plan with those 5 prints to accumulate more than 10 points. And the way that you would do that is by layering processes throughout those 5 prints. So what is this plan going to look like? Here's how I suggest that you set that up. So you should have these pages that you did for your step 1 of the planning nearby, because you'll be able to refer to them for ideas and also what you remember and know about the processes and maybe have thought about with the subject matter that you're considering. I also think it would be helpful probably for you to have resource images at this point, but if you don't, you can always kind of look for resource images later. But it can be helpful to have them, at least look at them on your Chromebook for right now. And then I'd like you to set up your thumbnails in this way. So I'd like you to pick a page in your sketchbook, and I'd like you to map out 5 small rectangles, okay? Because most cases the format of the proportions of your thumbnail is going to be a rectangle, because all the plates that we have for the light field processes are rectangular, and also the jelly plate print is rectangular. So you're probably going to have rectangular prints. Not that you couldn't later on cut one down to be a square, but for planning purposes, I want you to plan for a rectangle. If it becomes a square later, that's totally fine. And so I've just spaced them out this way. The reason I'm doing that is I want to leave room for annotations, notes, that are going to explain things about these thumbnails. After you have your rectangles drawn out, you can draw them with a ruler, you can create a little template for yourself, cut it out and trace it. Then I would like you to adhere, tape over top, a flap of the tracing paper that I gave you in class, and then another flap over top of that. So this gives you the ability to start thinking in layers of application with the processes and think about, well, what is my base layer going to be for each of these thumbnails? And so you might think, well, I definitely want to do a layer of just like plain acrylic with the jelly plate for a print, and then I'll decide to do other processes over top of that, like a tape transfer, or I might try and print to see if it would work to try and print another process over top, or do another jelly plate print. Okay, and so each time you add a layer, you want to think about, well, how will each process interact over top of the previous one? And then also, how many points am I accumulating? So the tracing paper is designed to help facilitate that. Okay, so I'm going to demo how to make a 3-layer plan. So my base layer is going to be a sketch of a plant with a leaf all curled up, and each additional layer I'm going to show that leaf kind of opening up more and more to show growth of plants. And so the first layer, I want it to be very faint. I'm going to do this one as a light field watercolor monotype. And so I am just going through and sketching out the composition. I'm going to show the whole plant in this one, just to kind of have it like light in the background, and then I'm going to print 2 layers over top. So this is a watercolor print, and I have a leaf kind of like all curled up, and then it's going to open up gradually with each layer. So the next layer, you'll see I'm going to sketch the leaf opening up a little bit more. I want it to be in a process that's a little bit darker than the watercolor, so I decided to try a citrus solve transfer. That's going to require me to plan
getting the right image, making sure that it's the right size for what I have sketched here, and then doing the Citrusolve transfer over top. But I'm starting to sketch this out to get an idea of what the layers might look like on top of each other. My third layer is going to be the leaf completely open. This I'm going to do in the light field Createx print because it's a little bit darker and more vibrant than both the Citrusolve and the watercolor print. You don't have to work like that, but that's how my thought process was.